Hi, welcome back to Painting with Artie Julie. I thought I'd do a painting of sky, clouds and sea. Okay, so we're going to have a go at doing that scene. We're going to not do an awful lot of drawing, just going to get a nice horizon line going across the lower third of this picture. It's usually best to get your horizon a third of the way up or 2/3 of the way up, depending on what you want to make the emphasis to be, and it's going to be mostly the sky on this one. To make sure your horizon line is straight, put a little mark here. If you use another piece of paper, this is watercolour paper, but you can use anything to get a straight line. So line it up with the edge of your paper, line it up with where the mark is that you want to draw, and you've got a nice straight line coming across there. Sometimes people tape it with a little low-tack masking tape, but I don't really like doing that. So now we're ready for action. We're going to do the sky first. Weakest, wettest washes. Just remember that whenever you're doing a watercolour, you start with your weakest, wettest washes first. So you're going to get the colours ready for it. So it's a lot of blue colour, a bit of cerulean blue, which is a nice summer sky blue, a bit of ultramarine blue, a bit of ultramarine blue, and burnt umber. Just tiny touch of burnt umber will give you a grey colour for that. You could push it a little bit and have a little bit of ultramarine blue and alizarin crimson in there as well. I'm going to do the sky and bring it down a little way into the shore. So I'm also just going to have a little bit of very pale yellow ochre or raw sienna, just to put a hint of the first hint of where the shore is going to be on there. Right, big brush, mop brush, we're going to just wet this paper all over so it stays glossy wet but not sitting in puddles. If you've got cheaper, thinner paper, this is Bockingford 425 gram weight watercolour paper, but if you've got thinner paper, you might find you need to double wet it. Wet it once, then mix your colours up and re-wet it again. But this one is quite a good paper, so we just wet it once and it will stay glossy wet while we're working on it. So I'm just going to let that soak in for a moment, so it's staying glossy wet all over. Take the puddles out of it, so we don't want any puddles sitting in the middle, otherwise the paint will run into the puddles. So just pause for a few minutes while that sorts itself out there and just gets a natural shine to it, but without being soaking wet. Get a nice clean tissue at the ready, don't get a grubby one like I'm using, but get a nice clean tissue ready and waiting. So we're going to start with a bigger brush. We're going to start putting the sky in there. We're going to start with a nice bright cerulean blue for the sky. Sometimes I put a bit of ultramarine blue in there as well, just to richen the colour up a little bit. And we'll have a big patch of blue coming across the paper. Use the biggest brush you can coat with, and we're just bringing it, start at the top and gradually work down your picture. And as you work down, leave the shapes for fluffy white clouds in there. So this is going to be the tops of your clouds coming in. Bring that blue across the picture and just leaving that soft shape for the skies coming in there. We'll leave a patch of that, just bring it down perhaps a little bit lower. So it'll get a nice bit of blue coming in there. This is just the blue colour. So now we want to put in the bottoms of the clouds, or the lower part of the clouds, to give you the shapes. This is your purpley colour. And again, we're just thinking soft shapes for the clouds, leaving the top bits quite nice and light there, giving the white bits, letting it fade back into the water. You can increase that by putting a bit of grey into it as well, which is ultramarine blue and burnt umber, a little bit stronger with that one, to give you again a different shape to your clouds. Just cleaning my brush, softening that top bit out as I go. As I come down now, as the clouds get closer to the horizon, they get narrower and closer together. So you'll gradually see these coming together, close together. You won't see so much blue sky in between them as they come closer to the horizon, but you'll still see the whites fluffing away through there. Perhaps leave a little bit more of a gap for a bigger cloud or a smaller one. Just bringing it across the paper. Perhaps use a little bit of bluey greys as well, just vary that colour a bit. Bring it come across. Some people dab the tops of the clouds out to make sure that they get them fluffy and white again. I don't do that until right at the very end when it's, because otherwise it dries your paper out too soon. So I'm just bringing in a little bit more grey, get it closer to the horizon here. Perhaps a little bit too strong, let's soften that out. So that should give me a nice little soft scry. Let it come down into this water so you don't get a sudden line where it changes to a different shape there. That's probably enough colour in there. If you need to re-fluff your clouds, start where it's already white and then just push it back into the blue. So get a clean bit and just push it back. This will give you a crisper edge to some of the tops of your clouds. Just put a few bits on here. Rather than just frantically dabbing and hoping for the best, just control where the tops of the clouds are with a little bit of a tissue. Just give you a bit more shaping it into them if you want to. You don't have to, just leave it nice and soft like that. But it's no point in doing it if it's already gone dry. But that will just start to give you that little bit of the cloud effect into that. You can break it up and move it. So there's a nice soft sky with a bit of variation into it as well for your little clouds there. We can move straight on to putting our first coat into this water. We will be putting some more colours into it. Such a bright, vibrant blue. We'll use some of this cerulean blue again, just down into the water here. We will be putting some more on, but this is just the first hint of colour into this area. And again, just put a little bit of colour coming down here, and then a little bit of the sand with this very weak, actually I don't think that yellow ochre is quite the right colour, very weak burnt umber. Just put that into that. Make sure you've got your colours mixed up first, don't do what I do. Do them, that's better. Just a weak burnt umber colour. Just coming out of the sand here. We will give a bit of definition into this, but it will just give your first coat into it. Okay, we're going to let that dry now, and then we can work on top of that. Okay, you can dry it with a hairdryer if you want to, or you can just pause and have a little break, and I'm just about to dry it with the hairdryer, so it's quicker for you. Okay, let's put a little bit more colour and interest and form this edge of the sea. This is nice and dry now. So we're going to use some of the same colours again that we used in the sky there. We always find the sea reflects the colours that we've that are in the sea. So we're just going to go onto dry paper this time. A little bit of purpley colour, just straight along this edge. Nice steady hand. If you wobble a bit, just turn it into a little bit of an island or something later on. So don't worry if you do wobble along that edge. So just bring it across here. This time we're onto dry paper. It doesn't matter. In fact, we're sort of actively encouraging stripes into that. And we're just going to bring a few more bands of different colour coming across here. Just gradually tapering that out. I'm just going to put a little bit paler colour on this edge so it fades. That was just a little bit of water just onto that edge there. And then we'll go into a bit more of the blues. And I used a bit of the cerulean blue. And then we'll just bring this down, a little bit of the ultramarine blue, bringing it down. And again, just on this edge, just have a little bit of water here so it comes back, it fades back onto that beach. Gives you the soft look on that beach. And we'll put a little band of something down there in a moment. Back to the blues. And again, a little bit more of this one. Whoops, that's a bit brighter than I thought it was going to be. Let's just blend that in. And that's your sea put onto there. Keep all the lines horizontal. We'll then just set some weak purpley colour, just a little bit of weak purple, and again just run that back over the beach. This is where it's all look like the water's just been washing up over the sand. So I'm just bringing this across. Barely, it's almost like almost water coming across there now. And that will hopefully look like the water lapping over the shore. It comes in and disappears into the background there. So again, we're going to let that dry. So while that's drying, we're just going to bring in some of the palm trees across this area here. So I'm just going to mix some greens up to go with that. So your greens, We're going to bring up some tree trunk first of all with a little bit of weak burnt umber, and then burnt umber ultramarine blue, but not a little bit stronger now, a little bit more on the browny side. That's now nice and dry, so we're going to bring some palm trees across right into the middle here. It takes a bit of nerve, this does. We have to have a bit of nerves of steel. I've just spattered my painting with some bits of watercolour painting. I don't know how I managed that, but still. Right, so we just nerves of steel to do this. So weak burnt umber, we're just going to start somewhere across the side of the paper here and just bring a palm tree trunk right across, so it comes across into the picture. I should have done that in one go. While that's still wet, that's weak burnt umber, we're just going to get some darker one and just touch it along that bottom edge, so it will run back up into that tree trunk and make it look like it's shady at the bottom. So just touch it along that bottom edge with a stronger ultramarine blue and burnt umber, so it runs back upwards into that palm tree. So you get a lighter side to it and then a darker side. Okay, we're going to do that again. So you want a couple of palm trees on here. So weak burnt umber coming out of the shrubbery somewhere here, slightly higher, straight up over your paper. If you can do it in one hit, not two like I'm doing, it will work a bit better. Straight across. While that's still wet, just get your stronger burnt umber and just touch that in so it just bleeds up in some places and gives you the shadowy underside of the tree trunk. As it comes around here, and just encourage it to go round. If it's too wet, it will blur a bit too much like this one has. So I'm just going to touch in a little bit more in some places on that one, not everywhere, just to make that a little bit more rounded shape. Okay, we will put the shadows and a bit of more interest in down the bottom here in a moment. So now I'm going to use a small brush. You can either use a very small brush like this one, or if you've got a rigger, that's quite nice. This is a long brush, long thin brush, which has got lots of paint in it. I'm just going to give myself some guidelines of where the palms are going to come out from. Palm trees are different to European English trees, as they all come out of one point. They come out of a point here and they'll just drift down. So this is where the centre bits will come out of, and again we'll work some leaves around. This is just giving me an idea of which way to go. So we're putting some branches in. It'd be the same with this one. It'll come down from one point, hang down, and we'll have a few coming up and then a few branches sweeping down, being swept in the wind here. That's just giving me a guideline of where to go. So we're now going to put some branches in. We could get a little brush and do lots of little lines. We're going to mix up some greens, some different shades, some yellowy green, ultramarine blue and a touch of cadmium yellow, and you could just do lots of fronds hanging down from this, but it can be a bit tedious. So what it might be a nice idea to do, if you get a bristly type brush, normally you paint with these soft nylon-y or soft round brushes. If you get a hard bristly brush, and you can actually just bash it a bit so it flares out, this will give you some nice bits of texture. So really be cruel to this. They're very cheap, these brushes. These are only from the local pound shop or something like that. They're only a little cheap. Then you keep your brush paint quite dry. Just put it onto the ends of that, or your brush quite dry. You can just flick out some little fronds. Make sure it just stays on the edge where you've got the centre veins you've just been putting on there, and just flick a few down, and it's just a quick way of doing some of your palm tree fronds. Don't put them all in with that brush, just a few, and it saves you do them all individually. You've got to keep it quite dry, otherwise it doesn't do it too well. So that's just the different shades of green. I've got some lemony green, some ultramarine blue and lemon yellow, and there's some ultramarine blue and cadmium yellow. So we've got a mixture of those coming in. So even these ones which are sticking up in the air here, the fronds will bend back and still hang downwards off those. Again, the same with these, they'll tend to hang down both sides of this palm tree, which is coming up here. And then once I've got that nice lot of texture on there, I can go back in and just do a little bit of tarting up with it, really. A little bit of stronger dark, ultramarine blue and a touch of burnt umber. We'd put some stronger dark ones in there as well, just to give you some colour variation to make that look a bit more dense. In towards the middle, a bit of that towards the middle here. While we've got that on the go, instead of putting all the mass of shrubbery that's there, we just use some of that, and again just flick that up from around the bottom. A couple of the different shades of the greens, the yellowy greens, some shorter ones, and then a bit of the darker one towards the bottom here. So then I'm going to just swap back to my little brush and just do a few a little bit more deliberately. So you'll get the mixture of the two different sorts of marks that you're making on there. So it's just, as I say, tarting it up a bit really to get them to look a little bit more refined. There's a few just coming out the top. So it's quite a quick way. There's all sorts of different brushes you can buy to do the fronds, or get effects, fan brushes, there's comb brushes as well, which are quite fun. The trouble is I buy all these brushes and never get round to using it, or I've never got it with me when I want it, so the little bristly brush is quite a useful one to have. So I think that's looking quite palm tree like. Just a few little bits down here just to tidy that up so it's not quite so strange. And really we just want to seat this down now, because I think we're nearly there with this little picture. So I'm just going to get a little brush, a little bit of the purpley colour, not too strong, we can always go a bit stronger and darker, a little bit of bluey purple, ultramarine blue and a touch of alizarin crimson. We're just going to put some shadows in across here to make it look like it's coming across the sandy beach. And then we'll just put a little bit of that into the water as well to make it look like a little bit of waves and things coming across here and disappearing into the background. Touch along the edge. A bit more shadow across here perhaps. And there we are. A little summery scene in a gorgeous place somewhere in the Maldives.